This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be welcoming Dr. Kristen Hillaire. Kristen is the daughter of Roy Silver, who was a manager in Hollywood back in the day. He managed everybody from like Bill Cosby to Fanny to, I believe, the Mamas and the Papas too. I have to check with Kristen on that. And he knew like everybody in the business. Her mother, Catherine Reynolds, was an actress. She was in Trilogy of Terror. She was on Soap, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. And her stepmom is Dee Dee Rescher. You all know her as the bus driver in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the one who, asks Mr. Rooney if he needs a lift at the end there. And Kristen is a holder of a PhD in history, and she is the co-host of a very awesome podcast along with past guest Patty Quattro called Rock and Roll Survivors, where they talk about the history of Fanny and the pleasure seekers and all of that stuff. And this is a cross promotion for them. And it's going to be great to have Kristen on. We're going to talk about all that stuff. We're going to nerd out on the entertainment of our youth, film, television, and music, and it's going to be a great talk. We've been connected on Facebook for a month or so now, and she came to me. She wanted to come on the show. I already had her on the list, like further down the line, but I decided to squeeze her in because she's awesome and she's so cool. And we have a lot to talk about, and it's going to be a great talk today. So yeah, here is my interview with Dr. Kristen Hillaire. Hey Kristen, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I am really happy to be here, Tommy. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, how are you going to say no to me since I was the one that reached out to you?
Well, it's funny, you were on my list. I was going to have you on further down the line of the year, but then I was just like, hey, no time in the present, so let's get it done.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad this worked out for both of us. The timing is great.
Absolutely. So going back in time, your dad, Roy Silver, was a manager for people like Bill Cosby, Fanny. Did he have the Mamas and the Papas too?
He helped Cass Elliot get into the Mugwumps
Okay.
back in at the bitter end in Detroit, and he and Cass Elliot remained lifelong friends, and I believe he did help her manage her briefly with the Mamas and the Papas. But if you read Owen Elliott's fantastic book, My
Mm-hmm.
Mama Cass, she writes that two chapters are dedicated almost to my dad with how they knew each other and how he was involved. So I wouldn't say in an official capacity, but he was absolutely a mover and shaker and helped her out a lot, as well as the Mamas and the Papas. And they were all migrating out from New York all around the same time, coming out to LA.
Yeah, I'm trying to get Owen on here. I've been trying to reach her on Facebook because I had Carney Wilson on back in December. I know that they're besties.
They are. She talks a lot about Carney in her book as well.
Oh, that's awesome. But your dad,
It's a great book. I really
uh,
recommend it, by the way. She's a great writer, Ellen. I really recommend the book. I'm
oh,
sorry, you were saying?
oh yeah, I'll check it out. But yeah, your dad discovered Cosby at the bitter end.
He did. My dad's motto when he first started managing was from start to stardom. And his whole idea was to find an unknown act from start and build up their career to stardom. And so, yes, he found Bill Cosby at the bitter end. I believe it might have been a comedy club in Philadelphia first. I'm not sure. My
Mm-hmm.
dad was also in Philadelphia, living there and going into the city initially. Then he moved there. And so when he saw Bill Cosby was doing what then would have been called very black humor, African American humor.
Yeah.
And it was my dad who said to Bill, "You're a funny man. You're not just a funny black man. So let's make your comedy more universal." And
Mm-hmm.
that's what they started working on in terms of his skits. My dad and Bill and my mom and Camille all went on the road together all over the US, honing his sketch acts and all of that. So my dad was very much instrumental in Bill Cosby's start to stardom.
I tell people, I say, if you want to learn how to do a brilliantly constructed long form bit, go listen to Cosby's Chicken Heart. That is just from another planet. Oh my God. It is,
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Well, and
yeah,
I don't know if I know you know this, but I don't know if others know this. So when my dad and Bill moved out to LA to start with I Spy and all of that, my dad started a management company, Campbell Silver Cosby. And it was my dad who wanted to make sure that Bill Cosby and the management company got royalties from his records. And so my dad formed Tetragrammaton Records, which was
yeah.
out of Campbell Silver Cosby. So you'll see my dad's record label, Tetragrammaton, but also his name is it's executive produced by Roy Silver
Hmm.
on all the early Cosby albums.
Yeah, so just brilliant, brilliant. Did your dad know the Ace Trucking Company?
Uh, that I've never heard of, and I don't know. Tell me what that is.
They were a improv group. Fred Willard, Mike Mislove, who I got to interview before he passed, Billy Saluga, who passed before I could interview him. Mike was going to set it up. They were all this part of this improv group. They used to play at the bitter end, and they had a few brush-ins with show business before they went their separate ways. They were on the Tonight Show with Johnny a few times and what have you. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was just curious because back then there was no internet and everybody knew each other and like everyone like knew the comedy community that was in it.
I'm sure that my dad met them. It's just not, it wasn't part of his memory skill set, if you will, in terms of talking about them. I don't know if you know he was best friends with Tom Smothers of the Smothers Brothers.
Oh yes.
So there was also a lot of comedic exchange going on there as well as musical. So I'm sure my dad knew these people, but I don't remember the improv group coming up per se.
You know that Stacey Lane Wilson's mom dated Tommy?
I I'm laughing because I'm just so not surprised on so many levels. And shout out to Stacey Lane Wilson. She is such a great podcaster, as are you.
Oh, thank you. One of my favorite people. Yeah, if you read her memoir, So LA, there's a great story that I don't even want to spoil. It involves her mom, Tommy Smothers, and Mason Williams. It is so shockingly hilarious. Like I'm not surprised, but like I was like, oh, that is so awesome. And the fact that Stacy was free to admit it, while her mom was still alive, that was just so awesome.
Well, now I'm intrigued. I will definitely pick up a copy, which I'm overdue in doing anyway. So
Yeah,
can't wait.
it is a wonderful book. It is like the definitive nerd like memoir guide because she's talking about all this stuff I can relate to, all the stuff that I experienced. Her and I have similar backgrounds in that both of our dads are guitar players. They were both in bands, and all this stuff that's just so relatable. Um, yeah,
That's wonderful.
your dad knew Tiny Tim.
Knew him. He was another one from start to stardom. Yes, he managed him. And that was
Hmm.
actually all but at the same time as Bill Cosby, but Bill Cosby's career was just took off quicker and longer.
Hmm.
But yes, Tiny Tim was managed by my dad and others at Campbell Silver Cosby. For those that have not read any biographies on Tiny Tim, I know he's a weirdo when it comes to his singing and everybody laughs at him. I am not a fan of Tiny Tim's. I know the dark side, the personal side,
Oh,
and I find them incredibly creepy. And
yeah,
and I didn't know this until later in life. My dad too found him creepy. He
yeah,
thought he was a brilliant artist, as did Richard Perry, who
yeah.
produced him. But he just, I mean, for lack of a better way of putting it, into underage girls. There's just a
Oh,
lot of kinky stuff going on. My
yeah,
dad would have to figure out how to have bouncers to, prevent him from bringing underage girls in the hotel, and just a lot of other stuff. It's just icky. Every time I read anything about him, I want to go take a shower and go for a long walk.
Oh,
Shake it off.
can I tell you this hilarious story real quick about him?
Of course. Don't be quick, please.
The guy who managed him after your dad, his name was Steve something. He's been doing a lot of podcasts where he talks about Tiny Tim. And back in like the early 90s, someone got Tiny Tim a blow up doll for his birthday. And
Mm.
like a month or so went by, and Steve's at his house, and he's like, "Hey, just out of curiosity, where's that blow up doll? I haven't seen it in a while." And Tiny Tim says, "It's in the garbage." And he says, Why is it in the garbage?" He said, "It's deflated." He said, "Why did it deflate?" Tiny Tim said, "I fucked it in every orifice possible."
That is just, especially because I know that that's probably true.
Yeah.
And that's a tamer story of his.
Yeah. Oh God, I have a friend. When her and her sister first moved to L.A., they were teenagers. They hung out with Tiny Tim. So I don't know if he ever made a pass at them, but I'm not too surprised with the underage girl thing. So
Oh, and I'm sure he did. And let me preface with, almost like Stacy talking about her mom when her mom's still alive. I've always known that my dad, I mean, his best friend Mark Hammerman, who was a roadie, said, "Your dad would have fucked a Drake."
yeah,
And when he said that to me, I thought Mark said, "Fuck a grape."
yeah,
So I went, he'd fuck a grape? He went, "No, Drake." And he went, "Sure, grape." So, I mean, so from my dad to think Tiny Tim is just creepy as
yeah.
all get out really says something,
Oh yeah.
especially in that era.
Let me tell you something. I have a really wild sexual past that I'm very open about. Right? Even I think that that's fucking disgusting what Tiny Tim did.
Yeah, it is. And again, that's a tamer story. The
Yeah.
biography I have, because my dad gave interviews for it, this was like in 74 or something. It's out of print now. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, so it's disgusting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, I mean, I knew something had to be up. When I see, guys like him and, one of my comedy heroes, Paul Rubens, who was Pee Wee Herman, I just
Hmm.
was like, yeah, there's a dark side there. And people have told me about, some people have told me about Paul and stuff and suspicions and all of that stuff. But like, I need more people, talking about it publicly in order to really believe a lot of the stuff I hear. But yeah, I
Well,
totally get it.
I grew up in LA when Paul Rubens was coming on the scene.
Yeah.
And I started hearing rumors back then. And since they're all rumors, we don't have to say them. But
Yes.
yes, I've heard about that, that dark side about him as well.
Now, I've only become aware of the word tetragrammaton because Rick Rubin has a podcast of that same name. And
Yeah.
your dad's record label was that, and he had Deep Purple do an album for him.
Yes, and just to not at all embarrass you, but just because it's tetragrammaton.
Tetragrammaton,
That's
that's what I meant to say. Yes.
Yeah, that's okay. And I will. So tetragrammaton, it's a Jewish god.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yes.
the name, tetragrammaton. But my dad liked the idea because it was a record label of having the word gram, like gramophone, in there, and
Right.
Grammy. So it was a play off of words. So again, Tetragrammaton was started basically to release Bill Cosby, or at least initially, or maybe a couple of other acts that my dad believed in. But Deep Purple's, I think it was like their PR guy in the UK, reached out to my dad saying that their first album was supposed to be released in the US, but that the US subsidiary backed out or something like that. And would my dad want to release it? And I think the total was like $5,000, which was a lot back then. But
Right.
as my dad said, for $5,000, I would have taken a chance on anything. So he got all of the tapes, demos, whatever it was back then, photos, everything to release it. When it came to my dad a couple of weeks later, he listened to it. He had totally forgotten. He
Yeah.
liked the name Deep Purple, and they wanted to release, I can't remember the name, it was a cover song. I think it was by the Beatles. And my dad said, no, Hush is the single. So my
Yes.
dad was responsible for Hush being the single in the US. And then shortly thereafter, my dad sold Tetragrammaton to Warner Brothers. And so that was pretty much it. But yes, it was my dad, which I'm very proud of. He had a great ear.
Yeah, and I know that album. They did Donovan's Lilina on that album as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Now, your mom, Catherine Reynolds, was an actress. She was in Trilogy of Terror and like How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, and Soap, of course. And
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'll tell you this: she was in the pilot for The Amazing Spider Woman or The Amazing Spider Man. Sorry.
Yes, yes, she was. She was a real working actress back in the 70s and 80s. She was on everything.
I'm a huge fan of that cheesy series. That's why I had to bring that up.
I
Yeah.
actually forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me.
Oh yeah. I mean, they shot it in L.A. pretending to be New York, and then when they did the episode where they go to L.A., it's just like wow, it's like two different places.
Probably right down the street.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and like I noticed that she quit acting at a certain point long before she ever passed. Did she become disillusioned with it?
She, I think we're going to talk about my stepmother, Dee Dee Retcher, and I
Yes.
always
Yes.
use, I look at both my mom, Catherine Reynolds, and Dee Dee,
Hmm.
very differently and very different reasons for being in showbiz. My mom really wanted to be, well, first of all, she was wildly talented, but she really
Hmm.
wanted to be famous because she had that hunger to be famous, right? She needed to be loved because of her own family background. Didn't have a dad, all that stuff, very psychological. And so when she got older, her looks, which is what she became well known for, went away. And she gained weight. I mean, I thought she looked great, but she was not comfortable adjusting her look and her body into a new age group for actors.
Hmm.
Granted, at that time, women at that age were completely overlooked and denied and seen as invisible anyway. But she had such great comedic timing, and she could have gone on to do character roles and really enlarged her repertoire as an actress, but she couldn't. Her vanity, in a way, her ego took over. Whereas Dee Dee was also gorgeous and talented and funny, but she adjusted as she aged. And so, I mean, she's been working continuously since she was a teenager. She has really never stopped. So my mom went into politics. She went to work at City of West Hollywood. She loved it. She had a great career. But I think in the end, it was always, showbiz was very disappointing that she didn't become more famous.
Yeah. And yeah, Dee Dee Rescher, all of us 80s movie nerds remember her from such classics like Once Bitten and Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Summer School,
Mm-hmm.
and I reached out to her in 2017 when I first started the podcast, and this is what happened. So at that time, I was presenting myself on camera and I was playing the interview on a dictation recorder, which I don't recommend, but I was learning how to do it and stuff. It took me 30 episodes to figure out how to do it like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she said yes, and then she changed her mind after she saw what I was doing, and she said something like I just want to enjoy my golden years, but I'll be watching you when you go up to accept your awards.
Oh, that's so funny. I know Dee Dee, like, I mean, she's my second mom. And
Yeah.
so she probably meant that, but I will say, and I'm hoping she will listen to this
Mm-hmm.
episode when you put it out,
Yeah.
that she does not like doing interviews. So
Yeah.
I don't necessarily, I wouldn't read it maybe the way she could have been legit.
Yeah.
It might have been so much pressure for her. That's not her favorite way of pushing herself, if you will. And
Yeah.
she really is an actress. She's not trying to, talk about her family. No, you do know about her wildly famous family. Her grandfather was Otto Kruger.
Oh, yes.
Her sister, Gay Kruger, is also a very well-known actress. And Otto's wife, Audley, no, that
Hmm.
was the daughter. Audley was Dee Dee's mom. She too was an actress. So I mean, Dee Dee grew up in real traditional theater
Hmm.
and on screen as well, but she is a true blue actor. That is in
Right.
her blood.
I did see her do an interview during the pandemic on Zoom and stuff, and she was pretty entertaining and she told good stories. But yeah, that's all good. Um,
Well,
so.
I do want you to
Hmm.
know I called her yesterday and told her
Hmm.
I was doing this and that I was going to tag her. So
Okay.
that's all I can do for you. But we'll see, Tommy.
Yeah, it's all good. I know all her movie lines. Like when she's in the strip bar in summer school. Back off, hair bag. This is ladies' night. or when she or when she tells Skip Lackey that she wants to go back to his place and tie him up to his bed so she can whip him.
Well, I'm blanking right now, but which movie was it? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Hmm.
I think it was Summer School. Who directed Summer School?
Carl Reiner.
No, then it wasn't. I can't remember the movie with never mind. This is gonna bug the listeners. In any event, one of the directors, who's Penny Marshall's brother?
Oh, Gary Marshall.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Which is the movie he directed that she was in? I don't know if you know that.
That's a good question. I'd have to look that up.
Well, and if you do, you're not going to find her, because here's the coolest thing that Gary Marshall did for her.
Okay.
Whichever movie we're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
he loves her. Oh, loved her, because he's sadly no longer with us. He just thought she was fantastic, and she is. And so he used her in the movie, and sadly, her scene ended up on the cutting floor. And he actually called her to let her know ahead of time, which I thought was really cool. But what he also did is he put her in the credits.
Mm-hmm.
So even though she's not in the movie, she to this day gets residuals,
Oh,
which is really awesome.
I have never heard one bad thing about Gary Marshall. Everyone loved him.
He was great. I got to meet him once at his theater, and Dee Dee was doing a play there, and I felt like he was my uncle. And we were just instantly kibitzing and laughing, and he's so great.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And you pursued acting. Did you get to be in any movies or TV shows?
I started off as a singer and a songwriter.
I read that too. Yeah.
Child actor. I was in a kids show at the Roxy for almost 3 years. It ran every week, called Let's Put on a Show.
Wow.
And our tag name was the Too Short for Primetime Players. This is way before Nickelodeon. And I was kind of the Pat Benatar. We all sang and acted, so I did Pat Benatar covers because that was hot at the time. And when I was 15, I was signed to Warner Brothers Publishing for a 3-year contract as a singer and a songwriter. So I worked with a couple of the guys from Missing Persons, and I performed music a lot. Acting, to me, I did pursue, but I don't even think there's anything that I can remember. But the Let's Put on a Show episode that we did, the show that we did, we produced 2 TV episodes, and they were Emmy nominated. We didn't win, but for day Emmys. So I've been performing my whole life. I'm so glad I'm not in the biz anymore. Not because of the same reason as my mom. I don't like it. There's too much ego going on and too much phoniness for me.
Yeah.
At least that's the business, I know.
Yeah, I don't like that bullshit either, I mean, after my accident, I went back to stand up and I was going to pursue acting. I was going to get headshots. I was being an extra in things that were shot in the Bay Area. And I became disillusioned once the podcast came and people told me the truth about shit, I mean, I got offered a movie in 2019. It ended up not happening because of the pandemic and stuff. And if I get offers and I don't have to go through fucking hoops or bullshit auditions, I'll do it, but I just don't want to pursue it,
Yeah, I agree. I don't even think if somebody came to me at this point and said, hey, here's a movie. I'm too comfortable in my own skin now, and I just find something about the business to be so dishonest.
Yeah.
And just so hungry for your own little moment to be seen and recognized. So that's why it's probably why you're great at it too. I thoroughly enjoy being an interviewer. I like asking questions. I love talking to people. I don't care who it is. I want to hear your story. I want to talk about your history. And so, I mean, that to me is, it's so serendipitous in a good way.
Yes.
I did not make it in the industry. Thank you.
Well, I heard you say in one podcast you auditioned for an iconic horror movie.
I did. I think that was on Josh's Rarefied Air podcast. Yes. And that was a moment for me where I realized there really was no rhyme or reason to how or when you get a part or why. And it was actually my mom's story that I told, because I think, and I'll tell you the horror story, but my mom's story was she had just been in How to Succeed in Business, the movie, because, it's a show first, Broadway show. And she was all like hot shit and going up on interviews. And, she was that new up and coming starlet. And she went into some woman, casting director, and my mom and the woman just hit it off. They were laughing. It was great. And then the woman says, well, let me look at your resume. Like, I don't even need to because you're so wonderful. And my mom said, as she turned over my mom's 8x10 to look at her resume on the back, that the woman's face just fell. And she looked up at my mom, total tone change, bitter, and said, right, you were in How to Succeed in Business. That was my part on Broadway. And because of you, I gave up the business.
Wow.
And my mom just went, oh, okay, well, have a nice day. Left. So there was that, and then mine was, so I mean, that casting director was not going to hire my mom for no other reason than her bitterness, right? And for
Hmm.
me, I auditioned, and the casting, I was supposed to be watching my boyfriend, I don't remember, turn into a monster or something. I don't remember what it
Hmm.
was, and I had to start screaming and crying, and I did, and the casting director was like, "You are too good. We just hired the lead, and she's the director's girlfriend, and you will overshadow her." It was something like that. I mean, whatever it was, I thought, that's when I said, well, I give. And that's why I loved going back to school, even though I was not a great student growing up. But you could study really hard, you could learn about something, and you could get an A. Like,
Right.
it was a payoff. You don't have always a payoff in showbiz.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I after I came back from my car accident, I was going to a lot of horror conventions. That was the beginning of me starting the podcast because this used to be a horror and sci-fi only podcast, and pretty quickly I got bored with talking about all that stuff. But I still talk about horror and sci-fi, just not all the time, and that's where the roots of the podcast come from. You know, and I love hearing stories about people, auditioning for horror films or getting fired or quitting them or whatever and stuff because it's just so interesting.
well, and also, as you brought up, my mom was in Trilogy of Terror with Karen Black. I
Yeah,
mean, that's cool. That's great horror stuff.
yeah,
And really silly trivia. If I don't know the last time you watched it, it's on a lot. But
yeah,
that kimono robe that my mom is wearing, that
yeah.
was her actual robe. And that was the first time as a kid when she went to go shoot that she was bringing her own clothes. And
Hmm.
that was just so curious to me. Like, why wouldn't they supply clothes to her? Like
Hmm.
that, I know that's so stupid, but as a kid, that was the first time. So every time I see it, I'm like, oh, there's the kimono. I have a picture where she and I had those matching kimonos when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So silly, but that's what I think of.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get somebody from that eventually because it's the 50th anniversary, and I'll bring that up because that's a cool anecdote.
Who are you hoping to get on?
The only one that I can find that's accessible, I mean, Gregory Harrison is on Facebook, and I have DM'd him in the past. I emailed him 20 years ago before I even knew I wanted to be an interviewer, and he answered all my fan questions, right? But, like, the little girl I found out, she's like a real estate agent now or something, and I was thinking about maybe reaching out to her, like, around Halloween time.
That's a great idea. I'm sure she's not being pursued a lot.
Maybe.
So
Maybe.
I don't know. I shouldn't say that. See, that's my showbiz bitter cynic side of me coming
Yeah.
out. So, but yes, you should.
No, I'll see. Yeah, I read your sexual harassment article that you wrote.
uh, yes, I wrote that. Which one? The LA Times
I
article or
believe.
the other one?
Well, I know it was a publication, so it was one of them I read online.
That was for the activist history review, and I
Y-
wrote that in 2018, right
Yes.
as the Me Too movement was happening.
Hmm.
And they had an open call, and so I wrote them, and the title is From Hollywood to Academia, and I basically was showing that when you have a small group of powerful people with underlings trying to vie for only a certain amount of space, Hollywood or academia, that there is a lot of similar ideas and pursuits that go on, like sexually harassing their students, or because they can, or holding letters of rec against you if you don't play the game. And so I actually in real life happened to have been sexually assaulted by a professor, and I wrote that article knowing that we were settling with UCLA, which is one of the first times a university sided with us by settling and agreeing to settle. And then UCLA gave me the option to come back and file another, not lawsuit, but Title IX complaint against this professor, excuse me.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you know that a tenured professor, I mean, there's jokes about it. You can't get them fired. They could pretty much do anything,
Oh yeah.
right? And so I still pursued it. It took a year and a half. So the total, it was about 3 years of my life after the first lawsuit. And it was investigations and detectives and lie detector tests and witnesses for both of us. And in the end, they sided with me 100%, so much so that it went to the academic senate. And he's the first tenured professor fired for this. And he was out. And I don't
Hmm.
know if you know UCLA, but the thing that made me giggle, if that's the right word, was they stripped him of everything, job, pension, and all of that.
Oh,
But the
good.
other thing they had to put in, and they did this publicly,
Hmm.
was they also took his parking pass away. And if anybody knows UCLA, parking is so hard there to find. So it was just such a big, F you to him. So in the end, I'm so glad I did it. It was life changing, altering. I lost my teaching career over it, but I would do it all again.
You are
Long-winded answer to that.
you are a fucking soldier, I tell you.
Thank you. I like that title. I'll
Yeah,
take that.
because ever since the Me Too movement happened, I've seen a lot of, what I was telling you the other day in Facebook Messenger about the cherry picking history revisionists.
Oh yeah.
A lot of women jumping the bandwagon and blaming men for all their faults and failures. As if
Hmm.
women are not supposed to be narcissistic and toxic. But then there's people like you who have actually experienced, stuff like this. Who's not, you're putting it out there, but you're not playing the victim card. You're saying this is what happened. This has been happening for a long time. It's most likely never going to change, but we need to be aware of it.
Oh, absolutely. And I also think I'm the perfect messenger to say it because I
Yeah.
did come from Hollywood. And when I went into academia, I was the imperfect victim. I mean, let's not, kid ourselves here, but in
Hmm.
graduate school, there's a term, I was grad school hot, right? There's real life hot and then there's grad school hot. I was grad school hot. And, I was dressing up, not provocatively, but I was professionally because this was my career path. I was older, I was winning awards, I was a teaching assistant, and when that happened with this professor, and I started to realize a lot of other professors were not necessarily doing exactly the same thing, but it was just rampant in our department. It was the opposite of being a victim. It's like, well, now is my time to, excuse my French, finally fucking stand up and say enough is enough, whether it was
Right.
my time in showbiz or looking at other females. I didn't want my students to go through this. Why should their life in school have to be wondering if they're getting an A because the professor thinks they're cute? And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I've never seen myself as a victim in this. And even my lawyers said to me after that UCLA first settled and gave me the option to come back and do a second one, I said to, she's a female lawyer and she's a rock star as a sexual harassment lawyer. I said, what should I do? Should I do it? And she goes, I can't make that decision for you. And then about 5 seconds went by and I said, of course I'm going to do it. And she goes, of course you're going to do it. I knew you would do it. But,
Yeah.
and I can laugh about it now and say, woohoo, I'm strong. And I am, and I was, but it was, for lack of a better way of putting it, and again, I'm sorry I'm cussing, it was such a mind fuck, that
Yeah.
whole experience. But so was showbiz. So again, that's why I'm glad I'm out of both.
Yeah. No, swearing is allowed and encouraged on here. So.
I don't know if you want to encourage me. I cuss like a goddamn motherfucking sailor, so don't encourage me.
Oh, fuck yeah, I do too.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. So you have a PhD in history? Like what areas?
I have a PhD in history, and my minor is in art history. For history, I look at 18th century all the way up until the 19th century, but it's the civil rights movement. A lot of people think it started in the 40s and 50s of the 1900s, but it goes all the way back to the 1850s. And I focus on, this is how they described people who were not enslaved. They called people of color free
Hmm.
people of color. So you're either free or enslaved.
Yeah.
I wrote my dissertation on a very elite family, free family of color, who were in Philadelphia, who worked on the Underground Railroad and worked with Frederick Douglass and all the
Mhm.
famous abolitionists. And they helped escort
Mhm.
people out of the South and smuggle them up to Canada to their freedom. Because as a family of color, it was a lot easier to hide those who were enslaved. You could say it was a cousin or a family member. So that was my dissertation. U.S.
Wow.
history.
And so, like, what brought you to Detroit now?
What brought me to Detroit was I left LA in the pandemic. So I had lived there for my whole life, 52 years. I had an opportunity to move to Tucson, which I don't know why I
Oh,
did,
I've
but I
been
did.
there.
It
I've
seemed
lived
like a
there.
good. So you lived there? Okay, well,
Yeah.
I'll just say it in a nutshell. I hated
Me
it.
too.
But
That's why I came back.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's awful. But I also had a personal experience there that was, it made the UCLA stuff, and we will not get into it. But But it made the UCLA stuff look like a walk in the park. So Tucson was like, I call it my purgatory time. It was just awful. So I started the podcast that I'm currently doing, Rock and Roll Survivors podcast, and I'm doing it with Patty Quattro, who's part of the famous musical family, sister of Susie Quattro. And they were all from Detroit. And Patty and I had started this when I was in Tucson still. But then I was hating it. I thought, I just need to get out of here. Where am I going to go? I didn't want to go back to LA. I just thought, I don't want to do that. And so it was the first time in my life where I thought, where would I want to live? I feel very lucky I got to ask myself that question. And then I suddenly out loud went, duh, Detroit. And my former husband, which is where Glasgow is, he was from here. So I'd been here before, and I don't know if you've been here. This is one of the best cities in the world.
Never been there. I'd like to go someday.
The food, the people, the history, it's incredible.
Yeah, never.
And what? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, never been there. I'd like to go someday.
Well, you have an open invitation because now you know someone here.
Yeah.
I'll give you the total tour.
Motown, baby.
Motown, that's right. And I'm right across the street from Belle Isle, which is this gorgeous water park island nature reserve. It's just gorgeous. I love it, love it, love it. But the other reason why I decided Detroit was I'm turning the podcast with Patty Quattro into a documentary that I'm going to be writing and producing and directing.
Love it.
And I have a couple of other project ideas that I'm doing here. And I thought, I don't know how long I'll be here, but boy, do I love not being in Tucson, and boy, do I love Detroit. So that's why I'm here.
That is so awesome. That's so awesome. So let's nerd out. Going back in time, do you remember the first movie that impacted you as a child?
I don't. I'll tell you, and this ties in with horror and my mom. So I was allowed as a kid. I mean, I don't know if it was allowed. It was just, the 60s, early 70s.
The norm.
In LA, the norm, and plus I'm growing up in showbiz, right?
Yeah.
And so my parents basically, partied, drinking, all of that, and they never really hid anything from me. They also didn't censor me watching anything. My dad's Playboys were everywhere. My mom, whatever. It was very kind of open.
Oh, I got a Playboy story.
And exactly.
Go ahead.
But then, so the Manson, Helter Skelter. Do you remember you're too young? But
that was 69. Yeah.
69. So, no, not the murders. They did a television show on it, like in the early to mid 70s. I can't remember. I'll look it up for you. And so I could watch anything on TV. I could listen to any kind of music. I could do whatever I wanted, and that was on. And I wanted to watch it, and my mom said, "Absolutely not. You can't watch that." And of course, that made me want to watch it even more.
Yeah.
But I asked her why. She didn't tell me why at the time because I was too young. But it was because she and my dad were living in that part of LA where the murders happened. And at that time, everyone thought it was a random murder. Nobody understood why they were targeted. So people in Hollywood and showbiz were really freaked out during the time, especially in that part of LA. And my mom was pregnant with what would have been my brother, but he sadly died at birth. So, and Sharon Tate had been pregnant. So that's, to me, one of the first times I was ever told I couldn't watch something. And then, of course, I did, because I'm such a punk. And I didn't listen to her. And she didn't know that I was sneaking off to watch it. And it totally scared the hell out of me. Totally traumatized me. So I guess that would be the first.
Wow. Yeah, Back to the Future is my favorite movie of all time. It impacted me when I was 3.5. My parents used to let me look at their yearbooks, and I always had that fantasy of going back in time and seeing them in high school and finding out why they're so fucked up and I'm so fucked up,
I could see how that could be traumatizing.
Yeah, well, it wasn't traumatizing, but it was.
You know what I mean?
It was a happy situation. Yeah.
Yes. I'm teasing. It would be traumatizing for me. Let me say it that way.
Yeah. What genre did you gravitate toward growing up?
In terms of television and movies and all of that?
Movies first.
Movies. I was such a Mel Brooks comedy person.
Me too.
I loved. Yeah, I loved them. I would go. And when the movies came out, I'm like, how did I go to a movie at like 7 years old? But I did. I always went with friends to the movies and watched. So I was definitely all the comedy movies that came out in the 70s, I loved. I never saw, surprisingly, I never saw The Exorcist. That scared me.
Really?
I was a little too young. My mom actually might have told me I couldn't go see it. Again, that was another thing that surprised me.
My dad saw The Exorcist. My dad saw The Exorcist, and my stepdad saw The Exorcist in the theater, and younger kids were like running out of the theater vomiting. It was just so traumatizing.
Oh yeah, totally. Totally. And of course, because I grew up in the biz and I wanted to be an actor from the time I was, born, I remember reading that Linda Blair
Yeah.
had to eat all of these mashed potatoes to the point where it would make her vomit.
Yeah.
And that's what they're right. And I remember thinking, could I do that? Am I that much of a method actor?
Yeah.
So, yes, I never saw it. But Amityville Horror, I read the book and I saw the movie, and that movie scared me to no end. Jody the Pig. What was the time that the clock would always flash?
Oh, yeah.
And I am so embarrassed to admit, I'm sure you know this. I didn't know the whole Amityville story was made up until like a week ago.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Did
yeah.
you know that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, lots of great fiction and horror has been made up.
I know, but I didn't. I just bought that whole story hook, line, and sinker. And then when they were showing it, I was embarrassed for myself that I never questioned it. It was like, oh.
Oh, yeah. The Exorcist ain't real. Jaws ain't real.
Yeah, but Amityville Horror was, everybody thought that there is a house in Amityville. Right? I mean, that's where...
That was the myth. Yeah.
Well, no, there was. And that family that moved in, right, that had all that, whatever, that whole thing was, it's very clever of them. They were taking advantage of books like The Exorcist or things like the scary kind of supernatural. And they read about the family because the brother, the first family that lived there, the brother did murder the entire family. Yeah. Siblings, dads, right? And so this couple with their son read this story and concocted this whole thing. Like, we'll go there, we're going to buy it, we'll write a story, like, we're going to flee, we're going to tell our story.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, no. I had no idea.
I saw it in high school, Amityville Horror, and I didn't find it scary. I was laughing at like all the diarrhea coming out of the toilet and stuff. And I was shocked to find out American International Pictures released it and stuff. I was like, I thought maybe a big studio would have done it and all that, you know. And you got James Brolin and Rod Steiger and Margot Kidder in this thing. I mean, it's a pretty good cast, you know.
It was a great cast, and you saw it much older than I saw it. So as a kid, it was really scary. In high school, now I've seen it since, and it's totally laughable. However, I did have this one story where I was at my dad's house, and are you familiar with LA? Do you know Doheny and Sunset?
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
Okay, so you go all the way up to the Doheny Hills, so it's kind of, again, scary and remote, right? Like Manson murders. And I just lost my train of thought. What were we talking about? I'm so sorry.
Amityville Horror.
Yeah, oh, right. Okay, so my dad, the house was there, and it was an old house. And I'm sure it's haunted, whether you believe in that or not. And as a kid, that was very scary. And I remember hearing some weird noise in actually what would become Patty Quattro's apartment where she lived. But I heard something, and it was right when Amityville had come out, and I had seen the movie. And I walked into the bathroom there, like in the movie, and on the window was covered in black flies. And it had never happened before. And I went, ah! Screaming. And I remember that scene from Amityville Horror with the flies.
Do you remember there was a music video the Go-Go's did in the 80s where they're cross-dressing as men?
I don't remember that video. What song?
I think it was for Turn to You. It was one of their last ones before they broke up. But that video was shot in a big old mansion on Doheny that apparently there were some killings there, like back in the 30s or something.
It might be Greystone Mansion.
Yes, Greystone Mansion. It was that one. Yes. Yes.
And there's a fountain on Santa Monica and actually Doheny, which is where they filmed the video for... I think it's Our Lips Are Sealed, or We Got the Beat. I can't remember.
Oh no, Our Lips Are Sealed was at the Beverly Hills Hotel water fountain.
Yeah, but it's not. That's not where the fountain is. That fountain is.
Oh, it's not.
No, it's down on Santa Monica and Doheny.
Okay, okay, okay. There's a
Yeah,
lot.
and they're skipping, or well, not skipping, but yeah, they're dancing around the circle.
Yeah, they're getting in the fountain and everything.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I'm sure you remember when the Star Wars phenomenon was first huge.
Yes, and in fact, it was none other than Dee Dee and my dad who took me to the premiere, and Dee Dee made my little Princess Leia buns on the side of my head.
I yeah, my brother was born 73, so he got to see the very beginning of it, and I was born like a week after Return of the Jedi came out.
Oh, so yeah, you had to catch up. I
Yeah.
stopped, this is going to be a very unpopular thing to say, so I apologize, but I kind of stopped liking it at a certain point.
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
not into it.
Me
Yeah, I'm
too.
not into it at all. So
Yeah,
yeah.
after the originals, oh my God, the
Hmm.
digital crap and all that,
No,
I just didn't
no
like it.
interest.
And the acting was wooden. Yeah, I didn't like it. But like
Hmm.
HBO premiered Star Wars on a school night. It was like the first school night after Christmas break in 1983. All the schools had kids calling in sick because they were, staying up late at midnight to watch it.
I love that. Hating school as a kid, I would have totally been one of those.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, but I was a
That's
huge
funny.
I was a huge Mel Brooks kid. I was into Woody Allen, Neil Simon, Blake Edwards. I love the Pink
Me too.
Panther movies. I know Blake's daughter Jennifer. She's been on here twice. I adore her.
Oh
Um,
wow,
I loved all the old comedy teams, Abbott and Costello, and Marx
me
Brothers, and
too.
Martin and Lewis, and Laurel and Hardy. Yeah, Charlie Chaplin.
Everything. Yep.
Yeah,
Everything you just listed, me too. That's exactly
mm,
my cup of tea. Yes.
yeah, they were all just brilliant. Did you have any movie crushes?
I am strangely not that kind of girl.
Really?
It was more music crushes, that I will say.
Who?
It was like well, funny, I was just a co-host on a radio show when we were talking about our crushes. Well, I mean, to this day, Michael Hutchins from NXS.
Oh
I
God.
don't care if he's I don't care if he's here or not. That's been since I was like 15.
Mm.
Going back younger, it was of course Sean Cassidy, but now I look and it's embarrassing. I don't even know what I was thinking. Same with Tommy Shaw of Styx. What was I thinking?
Oh my God.
So, and then of course, because I was a 15-year-old when Duran Duran came out, it
Uh huh.
was
Yeah.
none other than John Taylor.
I'm a huge Duran Duran fan. Huge. I got
You were
their
too?
I got their VHS video albums, and concerts and everything. I mean, I'm a collector.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, they were amazing to me. And my nickname, of course, was Rio. Had to be.
Rio. I drew. I
Somewhere,
inter.
and thankfully it's lost. Thankfully it's lost.
I
I've
I
actually kept a diary about like my love for all of them.
I
Which one I
interviewed.
loved more?
I interviewed the guy who directed the video for Rio. He directed most of their videos. Russell Mulcahy. He he
Wow.
he said that they went swimming after filming hours and they almost got eaten by sharks.
That's so great. Well, fun fact, speaking of the Go-Go's, I was friends with Jane for a while. In fact, we were in acting class together.
Oh,
This
I
is
got
when
a
I was
Jane
about
story.
18. But, okay, but what I was going to say is
Yeah,
Jane and John Taylor briefly dated
yeah.
in the 80s. I mean, like when they were both cool. What's your Jane story?
Oh, she dated him. She dated Terry Hall from the Specials. Our
Yep.
Lips Are Sealed is a special song. Oh, I can't tell it publicly. I'll tell you
No, it's a love
privately.
poem. Tell me privately, but also he wrote that to her. It was a love poem, and she turned it into music.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And Patton Oswalt did a joke about her verse of the song in his last special I saw.
What did he say?
I
What did
can't
he
remember.
say?
I can't remember, but he was like, I'm trying to remember what happened. He was like comparing it to something that's going on in the world today or something. Those things he does,
Yes.
like that. It was one of those kind of bits. But like I was into Cary Grant and Natalie Wood and like every '80s movie actress I've interviewed and become friends with. it's
Wow, I
it's
love that.
they've gone from my crushes to like my aunt because we're so close now.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. I love hearing that. And they must be so appreciative of your talents and what you're providing for them.
A lot of them are, yes, and I've been so lucky. Did you go to the drive-in a lot?
Never. Isn't that funny? I've never been to a drive-in.
Wow. I started go. I
They weren't
started.
really that big in LA.
I started going
Or
at.
they weren't.
I started going at 2.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah,
Well,
my.
also, this sounds like so snobby, and I don't mean it this way at all. But again, growing up in the biz, my
Mhm.
dad at the house we had a huge projector screen so he would get whatever movies were out, and we would just watch them at the house often.
Right. Yeah, my parents took me to see Weird Science and Rambo 2 as my first drive-in movie, and I remember it. And it got to a point they stopped taking me for a few years because I was either falling asleep in the back seat or I was getting out of the car and knocking on windshields.
I love that. Also, Weird Science. That's a fun one to see in a drive-in.
Oh yes, yes, that's
I
one.
love that movie still.
It's one of my favorites. Yeah, and I've talked to several people from it. I've been so lucky there.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. Actually, you know what? I take it back. The one and only time I've been to a drive-in was somewhat recently, a couple of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
when one of the Fanny the Right to Rock documentary was showing.
Mm-hmm.
This was up actually where you are, and they premiered it at a drive-in. I don't ask me where, I don't remember, but I remember thinking, this is awful. I hate this.
Yeah,
Because people are around. I wanted to have a glass of wine. I wanted to relax. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So, but I'm sure as a kid it was really fun.
It was. It was a lot of fun. And I got to see so many movies at the drive-in. Ruthless People, Light of Day with Michael J. Fox and Joan Jett, The Golden Child, Heartbreak Ridge, later Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies. My dad took me to all of them.
Wow.
Lots of great stuff. Yeah.
And you said your dad was a guitarist?
Yeah,
Tell me about that.
he was in a band called TNA. Tommy and two guys named Alan. They were a trio. They did hard rock songs that were their own songs were awful, but their covers were more awful.
Good for them for having that title. Did they know they were awful?
I think so, but they loved doing it. I mean, they were all musicians and they just loved having a good time. And I would go to rehearsals with them. They started out rehearsing in the garage, and then when my grandmother moved back in, they had to find a space because her room was next to the garage, and she's like, "You all sound like a bunch of idiots."
Oh, that's great. Did they record? Do you have recordings of them?
They recorded their own, tapes and stuff, but that's about it. I think my dad still may have his own recordings. I don't know.
Curious. I'd love to hear it. I want to hear some bad rock and roll.
Yeah.
Hard rock.
Oh, there's plenty of that on YouTube.
Yes, there is.
When you were growing up, did you watch the Z Channel?
Of course I watched the Z Channel. My dad was one of the first to get that box. Do you remember the box?
Oh yes, I'm old enough
Yep.
to remember because my mom worked for the cable company, and like we got the new boxes when they came in.
Wow. I love it. Loved the feeling of pushing the buttons. And I remember seeing King Kong, the original,
Yeah.
on the Z channel. And I was whatever I was when it first came out, 9 or 10. And my dad and I were watching it, and when King Kong the planes come and he's
Hmm.
swatting away and then he falls, I cried so hard that my dad was like, "What is the matter with you?" I was so upset. I've never seen that movie since then. And then, funny, my mom and I went to the remake of it with Jessica Lange when it came out. We went to the premiere, and my mom and I both devolved into tears same way at the end. We just sat there crying.
Yeah.
That's a movie I remember. King Kong is from the Z Channel.
Yeah. Well, the guy who ran it, he went crazy. He shot his wife and then shot himself. And
What?
yeah, that's why the channel only lasted like 15 years.
Wait. This is good. Tell me the story. Not good, but what?
I just heard this.
Please share.
I heard someone talk about it on a podcast recently, and I looked it up, and it was legit. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I guess he had depression or something.
Wow. Wow. That's a
Yeah.
bit of a short story that needs to be made or something.
Well, they did do a documentary.
Short film.
They did a documentary 20 years ago about the Z Channel. I haven't seen it yet, but I want to see it after hearing that.
Yeah, me too. Tell me how it is, and then I'll see if I want to watch it.
Okay, if I can find it, I will. Um, like, what sitcoms did you grow up watching?
Well, Soap, because my mom was on it.
Yeah.
Basically the Tuesday night lineup.
Hmm.
Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Three's Company. I loved Cheers. I loved Taxi. I actually got to go on the set of Taxi and Cheers because I was best friends with Mark Price, who was on another one of my favorite
I know
shows,
Mark.
Family Ties.
I know Mark. He's been on the show.
That's awesome. Yeah, he is really like my brother from another mother. He lived with us for a while. He was in the kids show with me. Let's Put on a Show.
Yeah.
And he and I wrote comedy together
Oh my
and did
God.
comedy sketches. Yeah.
Yeah, my this guy that I'm no longer friends with, who was like a mentor to me when I did stand up in the Bay Area, like he was going to introduce me to him at one point years ago, and it never happened. But then I got him on the podcast. He said yes to me in 2017, and it didn't happen until 21, and we had a blast. I'll tell you.
I'm sure you did. He's such a great guy. I mean, he really is like my brother.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and we went to prom together. I'll send you the picture.
All right. I want to see it. You and Skippy.
We did. I know somebody, when I posted that, I think it was when I had done Rarefied Air.
Yeah.
I posted that. And somebody said, "You went to prom with Skippy?" I don't know why that makes me laugh. Like, yep. And the picture that makes me laugh, Mark, if Mark listens to this, he'll laugh too. Mm-hmm. I'll just send it to you privately.
Yeah.
But there's a picture where my dad was taking the shot of us. And Mark and I were only just friends. I mean, he really was just a brother, especially when we're teenagers, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was it, at least for me. And Mark went to go, like, put his arm around me, like, you can see me, like, pushing him away. That's what the photo is, so you'll laugh when you see it.
Yeah, I was a huge Family Ties fan growing up. I still love the show. I was a big Laverne and Shirley, Happy Days, WKRP, MASH, Mary Tyler Moore, all that stuff.
Mary Tyler Moore. Oh,
yeah.
Cloris Leachman. I mean, they're all so brilliant on that show. We could talk about each and every one of them ad nauseum. But Cloris Leachman I can't wrap my head around how brilliant she is as a comedic actress, because she does things that are so unique and new and wonderful, and I can't even sing her praises enough, but she's just amazing.
Did you hear my interview with Karen Sharp?
No, I heard the Diana Canova one, totally different sitcom, but no, I will definitely go back and listen. But tell me.
She was in the pilot for I Dream of Jeannie, and they had to reshoot it because of Jeannie's belly button being shown. That was controversial back then, and I asked her about it. And, being 90 years old and proper as she is, she didn't want to address it, so she just told her situation of redoing the pilot and then doing a follow-up episode and then saying, I want to get out of here. I don't want to be the third wheel of the show. And then she got out of the business right after.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, good for her for having some integrity.
Well, she's a producer now. Her and her daughter Kat, they both produce together and stuff. So that's a good
wonderful
thing. But then
really
but then a couple of years later, Gene Roddenberry broke that no belly button rule on NBC with Star Trek, having Nichelle Nichols and Barbara Luna show theirs, and I had Barbara on the show, and we talked about it.
What did she say?
She just said, she had no qualms about it. She's very open, and she didn't mind showing it. And yeah, there was a big uproar about it. But then, next thing you know, like all the shows started doing it. There was Gidget at the time, and all these different shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Good for her. She's a groundbreaker.
Yeah.
I like that.
And we just lost Ruth Buzzy. I was a big Laughing fan.
I know. Me too. That really made me sad. A former friend of mine, Marcia Jacobs, was the only female comedy writer on Laugh-In.
Mm-hmm.
And she wrote, and to me, that's extraordinary. And it was such a sexist room, needless to say.
Oh, yeah.
Her skits were fantastic, and they loved working with her. And so, yeah, I loved Laugh-In. Every show you're saying, we're totally simpatico here. Everything. Loved it all.
George Slaughter has said the worst thing he ever did on that show was put Richard Nixon on it because he got elected right after. But Rowan and Martin were very conservative, and there was a conservative writer on the staff, and they pulled for Nixon going on the show and stuff. And they would get guys like him and John Wayne and all these well-known conservatives in Hollywood going on there.
Wow. And am I remembering correctly that Richard Nixon had no idea what this show was when he agreed to do
Yes,
it?
yes, that's true. And then there's like, if you go on YouTube, there's like outtakes of him saying "sock it to me."
I know any suck it to me.
Yeah,
That makes me laugh.
it's
That's funny. I
hilarious.
never thought about him getting elected as a consequence of his performance on that show. That's really interesting.
Yeah, well, the whole thing with Hollywood, mixing in with politicians, I mean, it's got power. The guy who invented public relations, Edward Bernays, he told Al Jolson and all these movie stars to pose for a picture with Calvin Coolidge, and then he got elected.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Well, we don't have to go off into the politics
I know,
portion of this podcast,
I
but
know.
I have to say I am so disappointed with some of the celebrities
Me
who are,
too.
I mean, it's just shocking and staggering, and I just can hardly believe it, but it is what it is.
Did you like the Kroft Brothers shows?
Oh, of course. Saturdays? Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Yes. And in fact, I can still, somebody, maybe it was you. I don't think it was you. Somebody posted a picture of the Saturday lineup with Dr. Shrinker, and without missing a beat, I'm like, Dr. Shrinker,
That wasn't
Dr.
mine.
Shrinker. That wasn't you.
No.
But oh, I can't think of it. It was later, Marty, Sid and Marty Krofft stuff. But oh yeah, all
Yeah.
that HR Puffin stuff, all of
Oh,
it, everything.
check out my interview with Sid Croft. It was crazy. It was snowing in California in February of 23, right? Like snowing
Mm-hmm.
all over the place. And we had like so many technical difficulties. It's amazing that an hour was completed. I had to spend 12 hours editing that episode because there was glitches on YouTube.
Oh wow. Well, definitely check it out. I'm sure it was fascinating.
Oh yeah, Mama Cass was his neighbor, and he put her in the H&R Puff and Stuff movie. She played a witch.
I remember her as the witch.
Yeah,
So that's interesting. I really hope you get to interview Owen. That would be really fun for me, at least.
that would be
Her
great.
daughter.
Yeah, I'm sure you remember when MTV was first launched.
I not only remember when it was first launched. So my dad grew up off of Sunset and Doheny, and my parents split, and so I grew up in Brentwood with my mom.
Hmm.
And there was this house between, like on the block, my house, and then in the middle was this kind of bachelor pad. These three young guys lived there. I was
Hmm.
maybe 14. And then my best friend Jenny lived on the other side. And so Jenny and I had crushes on these guys in the house. And we would do anything we could to see them. Like when they would come home from work, we would suddenly like grab our bikes and go riding out there going, oh, hi. Stupidly young and when immature. But one time Jenny wasn't there, and one of the guys, Dave, came home, and he took out a suitcase from his car. And I said, oh, where are you coming from? He said, oh, I just got home from New York. We're launching this new cable show that will be nothing but music videos 24/7. And we're
Hmm.
calling it MTV. And I went, oh. And I remember thinking to myself, really? Is there that much of a market for which is now it's like laughable that I said that. And sure enough, 6 months later, then it was the launch of MTV. I still cry over Video Killed the Radio Star every
Yeah,
time the Buggles comes on because of that.
I interviewed
And
I interviewed Nina
I'm sure for you
Blackwood.
as well.
Yeah, I interviewed Nina Blackwood a couple years ago. She was great. Remember, she used to have a really exuberant voice. Well, now she sounds like Tom Waits after 15 cigarettes.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, that was Dee Dee's voice as well, my stepmom.
Yeah,
Because
very similar voices. They do. Is Dee Dee from New Jersey?
she's from Connecticut and then New York.
Okay, because Nina's from New Jersey, and she always had a New Jersey accent with that exuberant voice. So it was a pretty cool interview I did with her. Yeah,
I will definitely check that out. I really liked her a lot. I thought she was great.
yeah. I mean, I was into all that stuff. Duran Duran, Naked Eyes, Human League, early Elvis Costello. Remember Donnie Iris?
No.
He did
Why
that.
am I blanking?
He did that song. Ah, Leah, Leah, here we go again. Ah,
Oh,
Leah. Yeah. I saw him do a podcast the other day. He's in his 80s and he looks good. He's very sharp. And I was like, wow,
nice.
I forgot all about that guy.
I did too until you just said that. I mean, I don't think I couldn't even pull that one out. And then you just, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and then of course the Go-Go's and then Pat Benatar. It is so strange to me, just on
Yeah.
another aside,
The
it is
Bengals.
so odd to me, the Bengals, but it really is weird to me that in today's world, with everybody that we pay homage to,
Right.
that Pat and her husband Neil, I mean, I know they're still out there and performing, but I
Yeah.
can't believe Pat Benatar is not more revered and regarded. She was such an icon.
Yeah.
It's odd to me that she's just kind of, or has not, she hasn't been forgotten. She's still very beloved, but you know what I mean. She's not
Yeah.
like top of whatever. It's weird, and she looks fabulous still.
I think that strong women like her get overlooked quite a bit because they're strong women.
That's exactly right.
You know, they get
Yep.
labeled problematic and all that shit, as we know. You know, but in my world, she's fucking awesome. I find it weird though. She won't do "Hit Me with Your Best Shot" anymore because of the domestic violence situation we have in this country, and yet she's not doing "Treat Me Right."
Mm.
Yeah.
Also, I don't. I mean, hit me with your best shot. Was that about domestic abuse? No.
I think it was at the time, you know, and I think she's she's dropped the song for cultural appropriation, and I was like, why not do "Treat Me Right" instead? That's a great fucking song.
I love that song. I
Yeah.
love that song. That's one of my favorite songs. Well, I love all of her music.
Yeah.
When I was doing the kid show with Mark Price, and I
Mm-hmm.
told you I was doing the Pat Benatar stuff, we did "Hit Me with Your Best Shot." We did all the Pat Benatar songs,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I think she's incredible. But one of the times, so it was, if I was singing, there was Mike who was the guitar player, and he was 14.
Yeah.
I'm 15. And then Jimmy, Jimmy Keegan, who's a really well-known drummer now, he was
Yeah.
our drummer, and he was 14. And so we decided that we wanted to do a different kind of Pat Benatar song,
Mm-hmm.
and we would always have to try the songs out on our director, Ken, before we could, do it in the show. He was really open to anything and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow we thought doing a cover of Hell is for Children would be just fantastic. And we're 14 and 15. And when we were done, the producers and director looked at us like, yeah, no, that's a little inappropriate
Yeah.
to say. As I'm screaming, hell is for hell.
Yeah. Yeah. Was your
We leaned
dad
into it.
was your dad the kind of dad who like gave you record albums?
Oh, anything I wanted. Yes, record albums, tickets to concerts, because also he was connected.
Yeah.
So we always got everything if it was out first.
There.
I remember him taking me down to Abe Summers' house when Goodbye Yellow Brick Road was about to come out by
Yeah.
Elton John. And Abe Summers was a huge entertainment lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
and but a couple blocks from us. And my dad and I went down there, and Abe's daughter was very spoiled at the time. I didn't like her. We were really young.
Yeah.
And so she went off to play, and I didn't want to, so I hid behind one of the chairs in the big living room so I could listen to the single.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never heard music like that for the first time as a kid. I mean, the chord structure, the saying in Goodbye Yellow Brick Road for a kid,
Mm-hmm.
it was just really mesmerizing to me, and I couldn't stop crying. And then I remember my dad coming over and saying, "Are you okay?" And because I couldn't, like, I was sobbing loudly. And it's still to this day when I hear that song, I love it. So yes,
Yeah.
he would buy me anything I wanted. I was quite the spoiled child because of being a divorced kid, parents of divorce.
Yeah, there's an actress I'm friends with, Carrie Noonan. Her father was a record producer in New York. She says, I have never bought an album because they were always given to me.
Pretty much, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I'm really upset about is I don't have those albums anymore, but that's okay because I could recollect them if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But I also had the best concert T-shirts. I had the best collection because I got everything I wanted and I got it for free, or I'd get behind. I had so much Casablanca records that I just don't have anymore, and that hurts. That I wish I had.
Yeah. What was your first concert?
Well, remember, I grew up in the music biz, so my first
Yeah.
concert was touring with Fanny in 1971.
Oh, is that when you took the picture with you at the drums?
No, that's a little bit later. So
Okay.
Fanny on the first four albums are on Warner Brothers Reprise, and Richard Perry produced the first three, and then Todd Rundgren produced the fourth.
Yes.
And that was with the four original members. So I toured with them from when I was 3 until I was 6, and then two of the members left, and then Patty Quattro and Bree Howard came in And Patty came out from Detroit. That's when she lived in the apartment at my dad's house. And that drum kit that I'm on was during the recording of the Rock and Roll Survivors album on Casablanca. And that's Bree Howard's drum kit.
I seen Todd Rundgren live.
Did you like him?
I've heard
about him these days.
I frickin' loved him. He is a showman.
That's cool. That's cool. I have to say I'm a late bloomer to him. So I can't provide a lot, but I definitely am starting to love him a lot. Not many people do, but I did like his production on the fourth Fanny album when they were on reprise. But the funny thing is he literally, physically and literally locked the band members out of the mixing room.
Yeah.
Because it was so tension filled and he didn't want to be a part of it.
Oh.
So, but I thought his production was great. I loved what he brought.
He played keyboards on Johnny Winter's Still Alive and Well album, and him and Rick Derringer became buddies. He asked Derringer to play on one of his albums. Oh my God, he yelled at Derringer, and they haven't talked since.
Well, I think that's part of his personality. Yes.
Yeah, he's from Philly. You know, they're loud.
Yes.
What?
And he's talented, so he gets to get away with it.
Yes, exactly. Do you remember your first makeout song?
I don't know how to answer that one. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Well, and it's going to get heavy, so if you want me to say it, I will.
I can predict what's coming.
Yeah, I never. Let me say it differently.
Mm-hmm.
I never had the opportunity to have a full-blown romantic makeout session.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have sex because first of all, the showbiz scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
There was so much sex going on around me and so inappropriate.
Yeah.
And you guys were hitting on me when I was totally too young, and my dad overlooked it, and there was just a lot. So to me, like a makeout session is just so innocent and lovely to think about. And then when I was 15, I was basically date raped and virginized.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I'm so sorry,
Thank
Kristen.
You.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I am so sorry.
It's awful. It's okay. I mean, it's not okay. It's awful.
Yeah.
And it's taken me so long, years, I mean, decades, part of what I went through in Tucson, to come to terms with that. And now I'm so much self-care for myself. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm so sorry that I had to go through that, but I did, which is another reason why full circle with the UCLA sexual harassment lawsuit and Frank and showbiz. It was like, you know what? It is time for me to speak up.
Yeah.
So my first makeout session, I have no idea. I don't remember.
Well, I'll
let you know.
Mine was Janet Jackson's Love Will Never Do Without You when I was 12, and it led to my first heavy petting experience, which was fantastic.
Oh, love. See, that's what I wanted. That's so cool. And then don't you think of this person every time you hear that song, even to this day?
Yeah, even though she don't want to talk to me no more.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
As my wonderful 24-year-old hairdresser, who was, I could be her grandmother at this point, but she's so wise. She always just says, just live and let live, and I know that's an old adage.
Yeah.
But she's like, people are going to do what they're going to do. Just let them do it. She's so right. I mean, I'm sorry she's not speaking to you, but that's on her. That's not you.
Exactly. So to wrap this up, let's talk about Rock and Roll Survivors.
Oh, please. Thank you. I was going to say, please, let's end on a better note. Yes. What would you like to know?
Well, I first became aware of it when Stacy had you two on. I think I had already, had that horrible interview with a certain Fanny band member that I told you about. And I could think I needed closure and stuff, right? I don't remember much mentioning of her and her sister on that podcast or anything, but I liked the energy. I started listening to the podcast at that time, and I had Patty on last year, and I friggin' loved her. I actually had more fun with her than I did with Susie. And Susie, it was like late at night in England, and she had low energy, and she was really serious. But with Patty, I had fun. I'll tell you.
Well, there's a reason why I want to work with this woman all the time. We have so much fun. So go on, though. Tell me more.
But yeah, so I just became an instant fan of the podcast, and sometimes your episodes are so short. I was like, I want to hear more. But like, yeah, so like it spun off. You had like Fanny Rocks and Get Behind Fanny, the other ones.
So originally, before Patty and I started doing this,
Yeah.
I was doing, it was called Get Behind Fanny, the Get
Hmm.
Behind Fanny podcast. My dad came up with that PR slogan when they were first signed to Warner Brothers. And so it was with Alice DeBure, the drummer, and Byron Wilkins, who is a huge Fanny fan, and also he was our audio engineer. Byron is still my audio engineer.
Hmm.
And then I, because of internal conflicts with the band members, I had to interview the sisters you're talking about separately
Yeah.
from Byron and Alice. And so we did 42 episodes. We analyzed all of their music. We brought in anecdotes. I thought it was great. It was a very different format than what we're doing now.
Hmm.
And then the thing came to a crashing end because of internal conflicts.
Yep.
And I wasn't sure what to do next. I really love doing podcasts. It's more that I love interviewing. I don't even think what Patty and I are doing per se is a podcast, but
Yeah.
and then Patty and I started talking and we reconnected, and I said, well, I said, what if we call it Rock and Roll Survivors Podcast, and we talk about the fifth Fanny album?
Hmm.
And I just thought Patty was going to be like my first guest in residence. That was my initial idea with it, which is why I thought the name would be great initially for her, because it's her album.
Yeah.
But then it could include other rock and roll survivors. But she, like you said, she's so much fun. She's so smart. We absolutely think exactly alike in terms of what our goal is for this podcast. And it's basically to cement her family legacy in Detroit while also talking about the rock and roll scene that emerged a few years before MC5 became huge.
Hmm.
And it's a part of the Detroit rock and roll scene that hasn't strangely been explored. MC5 has, obviously, but a lot of other bands that came out of here, including Patty's band, the Pleasure Seekers, first all-female rock and roll band, signed to a single in 1964. And if you think about that, Fanny was late 1969.
Yep.
So her history is incredible, but we call them our pillars because we make sure that it's the Pleasure Seekers, yes, it's Patty and her history, but we talk about the car industry and what was going on there, why all of the young rocker guys pursued rock because they didn't want to have to go into the car industry. We talk about Motown, we talk about racism, we talk about the civil unrest here. So, and what you said, the episodes are short, that was 100% intentional because, and one reviewer said, it's like a cliffhanger. Every single week, it's like, oh no, don't end it there, which is, of course, what we want.
Yeah.
And so we're having a blast. And the way she and I do this, I will write all the outlines for each episode. Or let me say that differently. I write the outlines for all the episodes with a huge like arc in my mind, like a movie. And then within that larger movie, each episode is a tinier movie. And then she and I try to record at least 3 episodes in one sit down. And then I go in and edit it and figure it out and pick the music. And that's what she and I will be starting again tomorrow. So
Wow.
that's my podcast and I love it.
Can you tell me what are the opening songs in the intro? I love them all, especially the first one. It reminds me of Carry On Wayward Son.
Yes, and that was by the way, those are all Patty songs. It's a mashup that I did.
Oh, I know. I just can't remember the titles of them.
Well, the first one is "Rockin' All Night Long," and that's Patty's riff that she she wrote that in the Pleasure Seekers and Cradle, and she brought that to Fanny. And then there's hold on, I think it's got to be Beggar Man.
And then Rock and Roll Survivors is the last one, obviously.
The last one.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. I'll listen to it again and send it to you. It's so weird. It's like I know the music intro like it's its own song now.
Yeah.
Because I listen to it so much.
Well, when I get you two both on here and stuff, we'll have a blast.
Oh, I can't wait. And also, I think the timing of this will be perfect because Cherry Red Records is re-releasing, because it's the 50th anniversary of Casablanca's Rock and Roll Survivors. Yeah. And Patty is working with Cherry Red to not only have the album on CD re-released, she's written all the liner notes. We had so much fun putting those together. And from her own archives, except for our podcast, that when we did season 1, the Rock and Roll Survivors podcast, she is giving Cherry Red the live rock opera that Fanny did for the first time heard in 50 years. And it's amazing.
That's awesome.
So when you have us on, I think it would be great. We could talk about the podcast. We could talk about the re-release and just how
Everything.
great Patty is in general, and how great you are, and oh, we could all have
Yes.
fun.
And we could talk about the Compact Queen.
You know, so she. For those who don't know what we're talking about, go listen to my Rock and Roll Survivors podcast. I think it's episode 4, but it's called Horny Teens in a Sweatbox.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a name that you're going to remember. When Patty and I record these, even though it's audio only, I'm very much like you in that regard.
Yeah.
But we Zoom so that we can see each other. And so she started, and she likes to surprise me because we think it both adds to the reality. Like, it's real, you know, we don't want it to sound too scripted.
Yeah.
So when she told me that, I literally, you could see my hands trying to say, like, is this the kind of compact you're talking about? She almost couldn't speak. And then that's why I said to her, could you please just say that one more time? Because I couldn't catch my breath.
Yeah.
So, yes. And we recently asked Scott Richardson, I don't know if you know who he is, big rock legend from Detroit. He was in SRC.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him.
Case.
Yeah.
Real legendary. And he was he's going to join us. He was part of this whole group that we're talking about. And I said to him, did you know the Compact Queen? And he said, no, but my friends did. Should we just say what it is since we're teasing them? Basically,
Sure.
It was this groupie, this teen groupie,
Mm-hmm.
who would go to the Hideout, which was a teen club in 1964.
Yeah.
And Patty's band played there, and other bands played there. And in the back room, which is where, like, you'd get ready to perform or whatever, change your costumes, this girl groupie would come in and give BJs to the guys and collect their
specimen.
You call it.
Their specimen.
Thank you. Their specimen into compacts and then save them. So
Oh,
she had a collection of compacts.
Oh my God.
You said you wanted to gag. I mean, it's really disgusting.
It was, yeah. I don't understand people who do that kind of stuff.
I don't either. And this is what, 60 years later, and we're still talking about her in that regard.
Yeah.
Like, that's how she will be remembered forever.
I'm sure her parents were proud.
I'm sure they were. Why is she so into compacts?
Real quick.
I was thinking, so does that mean every week? Because it's only, the Hideout was every Friday night. So did every week she have to go out and buy one, or did she say to her mom, I broke it? Did she have enough money to replace a compact? But clearly she was thinking it through.
Yeah. Real quick, we gotta play my Secret Silly game. Are you familiar with it?
I think I am. Go ahead.
Okay.
Hit me with your best shot. No, I'm just kidding.
This is a series of silly slumber party questions. It's no win or lose. It's just pure fun. And how the game works is I ask you the question, you answer it, and then you ask me the exact same question and I answer it. And feel free to comment on the answers because they might be funny.
Okay.
Kristen, are you ticklish?
Very much so. Are you ticklish?
Yes, but if you tickle me without warning, I might hit you in the groin.
Totally same. Absolutely.
Is your belly button an innie or an outie?
My belly button is an innie. What is your belly button?
It is also an innie.
Yeah.
What color are your toenails painted?
Right now, my toenails are not painted. What color are your toenails painted?
They're at the end of my my Easter egg blue-green month. I'm going to figure out what color I'm going to get for May, like this weekend.
I love it. My dad used to paint one of his, just one big toe, dark cobalt blue during the 70s.
Nice.
So that's cool. I like that color.
What would you say is your best personality trait?
I'm kind.
You are very
kind.
kind.
What is your best... Thank you. What is your best personality trait?
I have empathy and I have no filter.
Oh, I like that you don't have a filter. I think that, to me, that's one of my favorite qualities.
Oh.
I just so appreciate not having any kind of BS or pretense. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you. If you could have anything named after you, what would it be?
A college for the performing arts in any inner city, let's just say Detroit.
Oh, that's nice.
What about you? What would you have named after you?
A vibrator.
Okay, you win. You win the whole game.
I would call it the Tommy Chatsy.
Oh my God. You thought this through. I love it. I think you should work on that. I really do. Come on, make it happen.
We'll see. We'll see.
That's
and
great.
and then my favorite question, is there a stinky smell that just makes you gag?
Too many, actually. Oh, yes, baby poop.
Yeah, that's a popular one.
Yeah, I mean that's one. Or you know what? I don't have kids, so let me say a different one. When my cats, when I have to clean up their cat barf,
Hmm.
that makes me. I can't stand it.
Oh yeah, bad.
So that's probably more realistic. What about you? What icky smell can't you stand?
Either farts or feet.
Oh, I would go with the former. I'd say farts. Well, I'm not really smelling people's feet a lot, so
Yeah,
farts can't are hard to avoid. So yeah, I'd go with that one too.
yeah.
All right, you win. I'm just
They,
going to say everything you say. Although you do the vibrator one. I want the College of Performing Arts.
yeah,
So
yeah. I got a joke for you.
let me hear.
What did the elephant say to the naked man?
What?
Man, how can you breathe through that thing?
Oh my God, that's good.
That's an
That's
old
good. I
one.
like that one. I've never heard that. Excuse me, I'm choking on that one. That's good. I've never heard that. You can tell it's an old one. I like it, but I've never heard that. I like that a lot.
Yep, it's an old one.
Thank you for making me laugh, Tommy. I love it.
My pleasure, Kristen. Thank you so much for coming on today. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
I think so too. And you just let me know when you want Patty and I to be there, and we will. I can't wait to hear it. This was a blast. So
Yes,
thank you, thank you, thank you.
my pleasure. You have a great day and be safe out there.
You too.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye. Well, there you have it. Dr. Kristen Hillaire, ain't she a sweetheart? Oh my God, I friggin' loved her. That was a great conversation. We laughed a lot, and there was a few tears in there, you know. Not like you heard me crying, but emotionally I was inside. But she was fantastic. I loved every minute. I can't wait to have her back on with Patty. We're going to do like a Zoom call, and we're going to talk really in depth about Fanny history and rock and roll nightmares and all that stuff, and I can't wait. And I can't wait for you all to hear it. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.